Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we appreciate you joining us this morning. On the program, right around 7:20, we're going to be talking with our brand new congressman, sworn in right around the week of January 3rd, Nick Langworthy. We have a lot of issues to get with. I'll get to him, some questions that you sent in, and I appreciate that. Let's throw up the contact like we start the program almost every morning. Let me get out of the way there. You can text us questions last minute right there, or you can email. I'll be checking right up before we go live with the congressman. Also, I thought for just a moment, let me get the contact information away. I thought I would look ahead to next week because we've already started planning. Obviously, we start well in advance of getting some of these guests. That's next week. Monday, we're going to start with Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. On Tuesday, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Just spoke with him yesterday. He's doing well. We've got a lot to cover with him in Hornell. On Wednesday, Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. And then on Thursday, we'll have former Congressman Tom Reed. So we have a busy week next week. There's a few others. We're just waiting on the exact specifics, so I'll have Fridays for you at the beginning of the week. But I thought you would like to mark your calendars now. As always, we thank you for making this a part of your morning routine. I mentioned this the last few shows, but I think it bears repeating. If you miss something or you're saying, boy, I really like that interview with such and such, and I missed something that he or she said, and I want to get to the bottom of what they said, you can find the full episodes of Frankly Speaking on the Big Fox YouTube page, and I see a lot of people are watching there, and I thank you for that. And you can find just the interviews themselves on the Big Fox Facebook page. So if it's the interviews or you want to see the stories we had for the day, you can find them at either place, YouTube or on Facebook. So again, we will be speaking with the congressman a little bit later on. Please get those questions into me, last minute questions. We've received so many nice emails and so many nice texts, and we're really happy and really proud that you're enjoying the show so far. This is only our second week. When we finish today, we'll be 2 weeks in the books, and I think it's been going wonderful. We are chipping away at it, and I'm really proud of the product we have. Oh, I think I hit the wrong button. We do not have -1 wave. If you're wondering what that button is at the bottom, when people walk by here on beautiful Market Street, we wave to them if they wave to us, and we count it there on the bottom. I think our high this week was 2. It's early morning, but as the weather gets a little nicer and people are out running and walking, I'm sure that number will increase. But again, I've been receiving a lot on the other side of it because we want to make this about you. We want to make this about the community. So we've been receiving those emails and those texts, and that's why I appreciate you contacting me each morning, each day. You can do it off when we're off the air as well. You can reach out to me there. So we're going to take a short break. That was just a little bit of housekeeping here on Frankly Speaking. When we return, we've got quite a few local issues, perhaps some national issues. We'll see how much we can get to because we want to spend as much time as possible with our new congressman who, again, will be joining us right around 7:20. So stay with us for that. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. There are a lot of topics that we will be discussing this morning before we talk to the congressman. I want to start with this because I know we have an audience of hunters, sportsmen out there, and many of you watch the great programming we have to offer here on Big Fox for hunters. So what I thought I would do is maybe take a little bit of a different twist on this story because it's a troubling story, don't get me wrong, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint of hunters, and that is this new article, this coming from NewYorkUpstate.com, that bird flu has been detected at the pheasant farm right in Ithaca down the road. That's the important part that we're mentioning this morning. The sole supplier of the popular game bird, pheasant hunting, very big around here. But they noticed an outbreak, several dead pheasants back on March the 20th, just a few days ago. Over the past 3 days, 4 days now, 3 days, at least 500 of their flock have died, and that's going to continue to increase, the DEC has said. The farm was put under quarantine following initial test results from Cornell. Now, this farm, Reynolds Farm, is the only pheasant production facility in New York. and they distribute tens of thousands of the game birds statewide. Without stocked birds from the farm, pheasant hunting opportunities would not exist in New York as we know it. Pheasant hunting, and I found this not surprising because anybody that's been out pheasant hunting, you know how much fun it is, how enjoyable it is. It is one of the most popular small game hunting activities in New York, with around, get this, 23,000 hunters harvesting over 50,000 pheasants statewide each year. Now, the DEC runs 2 pheasant rearing programs through Reynolds Game Farm. One program supplies 30,000 adult pheasants, 18 weeks and older, and each year for release on more than 100 DEC-managed public hunting lands. So I wanted to mention that to, I suppose, prepare you as hunters. I know people look forward each year to pheasant season, getting outside, enjoying the time together with your family or your friends. So we'll try to keep you updated on that. That's very troubling. It is breaking story if you think about it. Just noticing that bird flu just 4 days ago. So, and it's right down the road. But I was surprised to learn that that was our state's only pheasant producing farm, run by the state. So, just a quick kind of an odd story. Now, before we go to break, I'm going to start this story and then we will dive into it a little bit further. But Phil Palmisano, who was on the program last week, a week ago, as a matter of fact, today, he joined with his colleagues and the district attorney in opposition to what is called Raise the Age. And we've been talking so much lately about safety in New York and safety, whether it's in the city or right here in upstate, that we seem as a state to do everything we can to encourage criminals. And this is an example. The Raise the Age bill, I guess you would call it, is it was enacted back in 2017 and 2018, and this is the crux of it. It lifted the age an individual can be criminally prosecuted as an adult from the age 16, which it was originally, to the age 18. This allows 16 and 17-year-olds to commit heinous crimes with little to no recourse, as they are sent to family court rather than criminal court. When the assemblyman was in, Phil Palmisano, he was talking about, and this is so troubling before we go to break, and then we'll get into the statistics. So troubling because gangs are recruiting these young members and saying, listen, you do these crimes and you're going to get in no trouble. So they're using that loophole to cause more havoc. So I'll show you those numbers and why this is so troubling when we come back, and we'll talk about what Assemblyman Phil Palmisano had to say about this specifically. Again, if you're just joining us, Nick Langworthy, our new congressman, will be our guest coming up in just a little bit. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam. So I was mentioning this Raise the Age law. And again, I think we're so focused on public safety that this really struck a chord with me, and I wanted to bring it to you. So let's take a look at some very terrifying statistics. Now, this is according to the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. In the year 2021, 16 and 17-year-old offenders accounted for these numbers that you see on the screen. So 16 and 17-year-olds. So with the Raise the Age, again, enacted back in 2017-2018 state budget, it lifted the age an individual can be criminally prosecuted as an adult from 16 to 18. So look at those serious crimes that are being accounted for by 16 and 17-year-old offenders. So Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and his colleagues and the district attorney, they've been very outspoken about this because, again, to highlight, gangs are recruiting these young people to go out and do crimes that the older groups would get in much more trouble for or get in trouble for at all. So those are terrifying statistics. And Assemblyman Phil Palmisano said these statistics from the DCJS are alarming. And then going there, as you see on your screen, Raise the Age passed despite and being, let me read it not from my screen, let me read from the paper. Raise the Age passed despite it being obvious it would further endanger public safety. Not only does the law allow 16 and 17-year-olds to evade appropriate consequences for their crimes, it also negatively affects their victims. For individuals that show up in family court, they are perpetually treated as first-time offenders due to their records being sealed. We talked about that. Criminal records being sealed is another big push for all ages. Victims are living in constant fear that their assailants will be swiftly released and free to reoffend under current law. So this tied in so perfectly with what we had been talking about. I wanted to mention that from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and that's who our quote on the screen is. And I appreciate getting that information from the Assemblyman. But Leader Barclay was the Assembly Republican leader, Will Barclay. He has been pushing this legislation that will prevent 16 and 17-year-old offenders who commit serious felonies from escaping criminal liability. So it will require any violent felony offense committed by an adolescent offender be maintained in youth part of criminal court unless all parties agree to move the case to family court. The current violent felon provision is too narrow. It is too narrow and omits several offenses like gang assaults or criminal possession of a weapon. And there's other parts of this, defined circumstances that would prevent a non-violent felony case from being moved to family court. And that's the big sticking point. So if we are going to take this seriously, like we see here from our Assemblyman, his colleagues, Will Barclay, if we are going to take this seriously, we really start having to crack down on these criminals, crack down on these felons. But it seems that overall in Albany, we're doing just the opposite. Not from these representatives, but from overall in New York. The mindset is, let's attack the police. That's why we have story after story of why retention is so bad in our police forces. People in that very difficult job, as I said the other day on the program, it's not thankless anymore. They're actually being attacked for doing the job of keeping us safe. So we're attacking our police, whether it's in the media, whether it's in politics in Albany, or let's face it, at the federal level. And we're also in New York making it easier for our criminals and actually encouraging them in many ways to commit these crimes, knowing that the worst case scenario is a slap on the wrist. Most likely, it's nothing. So many of these criminals saying, why not? And in this case, with this specific bill, raise the age, you're seeing young people, again, and it's so unfortunate, being recruited by these gangs to commit crimes that the older gang members would get in serious trouble for. We got to take a short break because coming up, we're going to be talking with our brand new Congressman, Nick Langworthy. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview, and I'm so excited because on our Zoom this morning, we have the brand new Congressman, or kind of brand new, Nick Langworthy. Nick, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Frank. I'm glad to finally join you here on the Big Fox.
It's been great, and I know you stopped by to see the studio, and we really appreciate that. Everybody here was a buzz.
Well, it's great, and I'll be back next time
good.
I'm downtown.
Great. So you are relatively new, and boy, you started out with a lot of fun with that speaker's race.
Well, I guess we're New Yorkers. We're used to a lot of really aggressive politics.
Yeah.
That was one for the ages, though. I mean, we spent a whole week voting for speaker. I mean, we came in with the intention of having a ceremonial vote, and our families joining us for swearing in ceremonies, and had to kiss the family goodbye a day later, and we were there till that Friday night. But that's all behind us. We're now putting an agenda forward for the American people. That's what we ran on, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to change the agenda in this country, show that there is division in government. This administration, I made it as abundantly clear. I wanted to stop the president's radical spending agenda that is bankrupting this country. That's what I said when I was running for Congress, and that's, we are throwing the brakes on this out of control agenda right now. So while at the same time we're accomplishing important goals that the American people sent us here to do.
And I can't wait to talk about a few of those in just a moment. But what did it mean to you, election night, to realize that you're going to be representing the 23rd District of New York and Washington?
I mean, it was, really a fulfilling moment. It's
Right.
it's a very serious responsibility. I take every vote, and I think about all the people at home that I grew up in this district. I grew up
Right.
on the other side of the southern tier in Chautauqua and Cattaraugus counties, and it's where all of my extended family still is. I also have been spent most of my adult life in the Buffalo orbit, but it's an awesome responsibility representing 800,000 people and a lot of great communities that need a louder and stronger voice fighting for them in Washington, and that's what I come to work to do every single day.
And I think people that I talk to have been very impressed because you really, to use a cliche, but you did hit the ground running.
Well, I only know one speed. I mean, we work hard all the time. That's the way I took the tact I took as the chairman of the state party. I travel all over New York and kind of took our message as what we were out there fighting for. And I've spent a decent amount of time in every one of our counties
Right.
in the very narrow windows that we are back from Washington. It's a difficult schedule. You have to make the most of every hour, and we try to do that. And I do that while still trying to balance the fact that we got a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-month-old son. So
That was wild. You have your 5-month-old son right in the middle of all of this.
yeah, my wife is an amazing woman, and she was pregnant throughout the election, and she had a lot of people that didn't really know our family saw the pictures of us on primary night. My wife was extremely pregnant, so that was a great shock. Our son Oliver was born on October 12th.
Wow. You've got a lot going on in your life right now.
We're busy.
Yeah, I would think so. Speaking of busy, you, I think, received some really great committee assignments specifically for our area. And you're on the Committee on Agriculture. And I see yesterday you proposed a Dairy Pricing Opportunity Act of 2023. I was hoping you could tell us about that because we have so many people, so many farmers in our area that watch this program.
Well, we've heard loud and clear from our farmers. I'm thrilled to be on the Agriculture Committee, especially this Congress. We are considering right now constructing the Farm Bill, and that will be our stone of agriculture policy for the next 5 years. And it's dairy pricing, and it's we want to bring some normalcy to that. This is a bipartisan piece of legislation.
Right.
There's a companion bill that's supported by New York Senator Gillibrand. I introduced this along with Rochester's Congressman Joe Morelli from the other side of the aisle. And this would get the USDA to go and do the reevaluation on the dairy pricing schedule and make sure that we have the best information and pricing possible for our farmers. So it is puts the USDA on notice. It's time that we bring some more common sense to that process, and I think there's a lot of good opportunities for this bill to be successful. So we're going to lead the way for New York's dairy farmers, and make sure that they have the voice that they need in the halls of Congress.
What I like is farmers are such hard workers, but there's no normalcy. You never know what you're going to get when you're a farmer. Weather, everything can affect it. So this brings just a little bit of normalcy to a very stressful position.
Yeah, dairy prices are always something that we have to contend with. There was, that horrible period, around the crash of the stock market.
Right.
Where dairy farmers were, it was the darkest days. It took a lot of the small guys completely out of the game, and we've seen a lot of consolidation in the marketplace. Even our farms that are considered small on the industry scale now are a lot bigger than what small family dairies used to look like. And I've been trying to tour as many of those as possible along the way throughout the southern tier in southern Erie County. I've got very good news. Chairman G.T. Thompson, who some of the viewers here might be in his congressional district.
Yes.
He's my neighbor. He's the chairman of the Agriculture Committee. And Chairman Thompson has asked me to work with him to schedule one of the official Agriculture Committee's Farm Bill listening tour events in the 23rd Congressional District.
That's perfect. Wow, that's exciting. I can't wait to see more about that.
Yeah, that's so stay tuned for details there. We're going to get to work and make sure that this will be New York State shot. I mean, myself and Congressman Molinaro, who represents Tioga County and Broome County, but then all the way to the Hudson Valley. He is also on the Agriculture Committee, and we collaborate on a lot of pieces of policy because we're the only two New Yorkers on this whole committee, and when there's $1 trillion worth of agriculture, legislation at stake. New York is not seen by the rest of the country as the agricultural producer that it is. Mm-hmm. We have massive dairy, we have specialty crops, and they need to have their place in this. This isn't, what I was told is the Agriculture Committee and the Farm Bill will create some strange political bedfellows within people that you might not on other policy matters, but kind of is more regional in its focus. And we want to make sure that our farmers, which are such a backbone of our communities, have the voice that they need as it comes to this farm bill.
Absolutely. And so you're on the Committee on Agriculture, and what are you looking at ahead for the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, and of course the Committee on Rules?
Well, we'll start with the Rules Committee because that's the easier one to explain. And the Rules Committee, I was selected by Speaker McCarthy to serve on the Rules Committee. There are 9 Republicans that sit on that committee as the majority, and there are 4 Democrats. Okay. Virtually every single piece of legislation that is going to come to the floor will come through the Rules Committee first. It must have a rule attached to it to govern the amendments process and how the bill will be presented and voted on. So this has given me a seat front and center to the entire legislative process of the floor of the House of Representatives. There's nothing, the committee chairs come to our committee, they argue their position, and we discuss the merits of the bill, the provisions of the bill. We have unlimited question and answer, and it's an extremely powerful committee, and it's one that gives me a front seat. I mean, in my 3rd week in the House, I was managing the floor. So that is not something typically that you do in your freshman term, but I've learned quick, and it's also allowed me to really broaden relationships within the House in a short time. And then the Committee on Oversight, you can't turn on cable news without seeing our chairman, James Comer. And he was actually just in Buffalo for me for a fundraising event for my campaign. And he's become a friend. He's someone that works, I swear, 24 hours a day. The amount of work that's going on in the Oversight Committee, it's just surreal. I mean, we're taking on big tech. I mean, week one, we're sitting across the dais from, officials from fired executives from Twitter. Next week we have our Border Patrol agents, from the southern border coming in to testify as to how they don't have the tools that they need to get the job done. And there's the obvious elephant in the room, the Hunter Biden investigations, the Biden family, grift mill that's going on. That is all coming through our committee, as well as work with Chairman Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee. But, we have the bank records, and Chairman Comer, there's been previous chairs of this committee, and I think they played to the cameras. But I really think that Chairman Comer is playing for keeps here, and these are very serious, grave facts that he's uncovered with these bank records. I mean, the fact that literally several months after President Biden left the vice presidency, his family's transferred over $3 million from a company directly linked to the CCP in China, and money is spread across 4 family members right away, $1 million. Not a single one of these people has an energy skill, any sort of tangible experience that would behoove the payment of $1 million to this family. This is influence peddling at its absolute worst by the looks of it, and there's a lot more to come on these bank records.
And isn't it great that Republicans won the majority so we can finally learn more about this? Because it looks anyway that the media is just going to ignore it.
Well, we sat there with the former executives of Twitter and discussed directly
Yeah.
the fact that they banned this in the course of the end of the presidential election. They silenced and deplatformed the New York Post on Twitter. I mean, this is one of the most consistent, conservative media voices in America. This isn't just a regional newspaper.
Right.
This is where you go for if you want a conservative slant to your news. They uncovered the Hunter Biden laptop and were deplatformed for the duration of the presidential election. I mean, Twitter tried to play God. They did more to interfere with the outcome of that election. Now, would anything have gone differently? I can't prove that. But the fact that that story, because they were deplatformed on Twitter, it allowed those in the mainstream media to ignore the story.
And I think as Republicans, we do a disservice if we don't realize how important tech is in people's lives. We may not think about it, but there's people that live and die by a tweet and live and die by a Facebook post. We have to start taking that very, very seriously.
100%. And people say, well, why are you on Twitter? No one's on Twitter. Well, the reporters live on Twitter.
Yes.
I use Twitter to get real-time breaking news, not for commentary.
Right.
I'm not going on platforms that I don't really have time to sit and argue with people on social media.
Right.
But when there's something hot breaking, you turn to social media. You don't necessarily turn on, in olden times you would have turned on the television or the radio. But those platforms don't necessarily break into their existing programming with breaking news. But Twitter, things are instantaneously produced by the reporters. And I do think that it is what Elon Musk has done to try to shed some light as to what is going on, and now opening that back up. If this continues in the censorship of big tech, I mean, I think they need regulation like public utility. Because I view this as no less important than our airwaves where we broadcast news. You wouldn't say, well, you can't broadcast over the air because you're conservative or liberal. I mean, I think it should be equal opportunity, and there needs to not be the bias that's been put in there by these big tech executives. And you could see just in the faces of these individuals that were from Twitter how much they loathe the Republicans that were on this committee. I mean, they can't even hide the disdain.
No, and not the worst part about it, but the New York Post did such good reporting on it too. This wasn't slap shot together. This was the New York Post really doing the research and putting out a great piece, and it was censored by the various social media. We've got to start taking that very seriously. Now, I know you have to get going. We talked about how busy you are, but if I could just ask you, and I know this is just a liberal wish list, but what did you think of Biden's budget proposal?
It's dead on arrival.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're adding to there's no self-awareness to slow spending. I mean, the fact that we're $32 trillion in the debt and he wants to keep digging. His woke agenda. I mean, the best way I've heard it stated was by our budget chair, Jody Arrington. Biden's budget will make America even more woke and broke.
That's perfect. Yeah.
The reality is we have to bend the curve. I mean, we have this thing that's hanging over our head with the debt ceiling. We obviously have to live up to the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. I believe the global economy hangs in the balance. But the president should see, all right, we're in divided government. It is time that we have some compromise. Elections have consequences, and it's time we've got to bend that spending curve.
Right.
And, it may not be a 10-year window to balance the budget. I don't see, after spending $5 trillion in the last 2 years, how that's probably possible.
Right.
Is it 12 years? Is it 13 years? But you got to show light at the end of the tunnel, and you got to show that you get it. I mean, the American people, all this inflation has been created by government overspending.
Yes.
I mean, and families are being pinched every single day. Any new purchasing power that they received by an increase in minimum wage or an increase in the wages in their company has been swallowed up long before by the inflation. high energy prices, by high grocery prices, and there's nothing there to get that under control.
No.
And we have a government that is well on its way to cradle to grave dependency. That's the mission of this administration, just like it was the Obama administration. They want to fundamentally transform America. Now we have divided government. Let's bend the curve on spending. We have to have some concessions here. We have to get things back heading in the right direction. Emergency's over. That's the one great accomplishment I think that we've sent as a House Republican majority, is we were putting forward pandemic ending signals.
Right.
The Show Up Act, calling on the federal workforce to come back to the office.
Yeah.
Because our constituents, the caseworkers that work in my office in Corning, in Clarence, in Jamestown, and Olean, they're dealing every day with constituents that can't get things through the IRS, can't get their passports. I mean, the amount of emergency passport appointments that we've had to create because the State Department isn't processing things as they should be, it's surreal. Because 47% of our federal workforce doesn't want to come back to work. You know where they, I'm sure, are on the weekends?
Yeah.
In the shopping center,
Yeah.
in the movie theater,
In public.
sporting events, enjoying their lives, but they don't want to get back to normal. My mission in Congress is to get this country as close to 2019 life as we can get back to.
Yes. Amen.
Because we owe it to our kids. I mean, this malaise where you can be less productive, not show up to work and still get the full day's pay. Gravy train's over, folks.
Right.
We got $5 trillion. Our federal employees need to go back to work just like everybody else is being called back to work. There's no reason that they shouldn't be. And, because we started moving forward with legislation and resolutions like this, the president came out and said that on May 11th, he'll formally declare that the emergency has ended. So we have changed the trajectory in that way alone.
And just before we go, I'm glad you mentioned that because I know constituent cases must be overwhelming right now. And is that what you're seeing? You're relatively new to the job. You just getting phone calls nonstop.
Well, we kept a lot of great casework employees from, they had worked for Congressman Reed and Sempolinski, and Congressman Jacobs in the Buffalo area. So that way we were able to serve the constituents on day one. People that were experienced. I was a congressional staffer long ago. So I know how important that casework is. People have problems with the VA. They have problems cutting through the red tape at the IRS. There's so many of our small business people that are trying to get tax credits they're entitled to from these pandemic-related programs because they suffered under closure, forced closure, and so many of the mandates of the government. We have been able to go in there and shake some of that loose for them, and we work every single day on that. We have a world-class team that is there to serve you. Anyone watching at home, if you have problems with the IRS, you have problems with any federal agency, you call our office, visit us at langworthy.house.gov. All of our offices are there. You can contact us through the website, and we will get back to you. I believe in over-communicating, and you may not agree with me on everything, but you're going to know where I'm coming from.
Transparency.
I come to that position. But also, we're here to serve you whether you agree with me or not.
Right.
And you have a member of Congress that has a staff dedicated to the citizens of this district, and we will help you navigate whatever problem you happen to be having with the federal government.
Great. Congressman Nick Langworthy has been our guest. I really appreciate this. I had a bunch of other topics I want to bring up, but I know we're out of time, so let's talk again soon.
Let's do it again soon. I'm happy to do it on a regular basis.
Great.
And, let's face it, Frank, I was here in the office anyway this morning.
Yeah, that's
doing
perfect.
work, and I'd rather be talking to you than signing these letters here right now. So,
well, I appreciate that. So thank you, Nick.
I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in the Southern Tier.
Sounds great. Thanks. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. What a fun interview with the congressman. That, of course, the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview right here on Frankly Speaking. I hate to do this to you. We ran so late with the congressman. I know I received so many great emails, and I apologize I wasn't able to get to all of them. Please, I encourage you to continue writing the questions for our representatives, and I will do my best. This was one that was just between Zoom and him in Washington and et cetera. It was a little too much to get to all of them today, so I do appreciate it. I want you to know that. When we come back, we're going to discuss as much as we possibly can. We just got to take a back-to-back commercial because I ran very late with the congressman. I'm still learning the schedule, so stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thanks again to Congressman Nick Langworthy for joining us this morning during the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview. I wanted to remind you, because I mentioned it earlier on the program, and if you're just joining us because you want to tune in to see Nick, this is our schedule, at least the beginning part of the week. On Monday, Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Tuesday, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Wednesday, Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. And then on Thursday, former Congressman Tom Reed. So as I said, I was not able time-wise, because I'm already up on another break, if I'm being honest, because the Congressman, we had so much to talk about. And I received two great questions. One on infrastructure, which is a question we will ask him next time. Of course, we had the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed not that long ago. The question here being, where did that money go? Are other areas seeing it? That's the crux of the question. And I apologize I wasn't able to get to all of those. That was our first interview with the congressman, so we kind of wanted to lay the groundwork. But I will highlight here, you can always contact me, and I will do my best to save those. I would, if you could, get them a little bit earlier, maybe the day before. But if not, I did check it right before I went on the air. It was too much. But they were really, really good questions. So thank you. So contact us there. I'd really appreciate it. So let's wrap up with not wrap up. Let's take a short break, and then we'll wrap up the program. As you saw when the congressman was on the air, we had a wave. So we do have one wave that came in today on beautiful Marcus Street in Corning. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We have just one other short break that we'll have to take here in just a second because, as I said, I ran so long. So when we come back, we're going to wrap up a couple local issues. Thank you again to the congressman for being on the program. Thank you to everybody who reached out. I want to remind you, you can always go to our YouTube page. You can always go to our Facebook page as well. And you can, just a little bit after the program, you'll have an opportunity to rewatch those interviews that we had for the last 2 weeks. It's hard to believe, but this is our second week. Right now will be exactly 2 weeks today. And that's why I'm so happy that you made this a part of your morning routine, and I'm so proud of the product that we're putting out with great guests, and I hope great topics. So last break, and then we'll wrap up the program for this week here on Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live on Marcus Street from the Hesselson studio. I wanted to highlight this local event before we call it a day here. Let's go to the text screen. There you go. It's the second annual Chemung Restaurant Week. We had Chemung County Executive Chris Moss on. We talked about the economics of the area and some of the things that are going on with labor shortages, and that has been a common theme. And Congressman Nick Langworthy brought it up too. Isn't it amazing what he said about the federal government, by the way? That those employees just don't want to go back. I mean, are they really locked in their house like it was the beginning of COVID? But yeah, we as taxpayers are paying that. That's not why I brought up the screen. I apologize. I got on a tangent. But it's the second annual Chemung Restaurant Week. It starts today and runs through April 2nd. It's open to all restaurants. And what the Chemung County Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with Elmira Downtown Development, is asking you to do, there's going to be a lot of sales. There's going to be a lot of specials, things that highlight maybe that restaurant's specific expertise or what they think is their best dish. So what you can do is find out about participating restaurants at that website. And then when you are out, diners are encouraged to participate in the social media contest by posting a picture of their dining experience on Instagram and Facebook. And then you want to tag the location and you want to tag the Chemung Chamber. It's at Chemung Chamber, and use the hashtag Chemung Foodie. FOODIE. So we always want to support our local businesses, and that's why I wanted to pass that on to you. So now let me get back on my tangent while I just have a moment. But think of, listen, I'm not saying we all want to be safe, but when does it become extreme when so many federal employees are saying, I don't want to go in. And anybody who's had issues with the IRS or had issues with the VA or with Passport, there is such a delay on these cases. That's why the congressman said, call my office. We'll try to help the best we can. But you have essentially IRS employees that have been home since the beginning of COVID, and they're still getting paid. It's mind-boggling to think. Imagine your life today like it was 3 years ago today. We can't... There's no way these employees, like the congressman said, they're still going out on the weekends. They're still going out on their free time, most likely, right? You're really not locked up in your home. So that's fascinating that we as taxpayers are paying for people. Like he said, the gravy train is over. Well, that is hard to believe. 2 weeks in the book. It's going so fast, and I think the show is getting better and better by the day, and we started out pretty darn good. So I want to thank everybody who joined us. Contact me always. I hope you have a fun, safe weekend, and that you'll set your alarm and that you'll be back with us Monday morning starting at 7 a.m. right here on WYDC TV Big Fox. And we'll be broadcasting live then from the Hesselson studio. Have a great weekend, everyone.